Without further ado, we'll kick off with Brian Beaton, the potato specialist of the PEI Department of Agriculture, who's going to speak to us about how wireworm is a growing problem around the world and here in Canada.
Okay, thank you very much, Ryan. Yeah, I'm going to try to frame up the situation. When we conceived this day at one of our meetings, I guess there's been a lot of research done. This fall there seemed to be more and more growing concern, I guess, from damage in different crops, carrots, potatoes, whatnot. So they decided to kind of have me kick off the day and kind of frame the situation just briefly, so everybody we kind of know where we're at with respect to other areas. I couldn't get up in front of a crowd without promoting the Potato Expo. The Potato Expo is going to be held here in Charlottetown on February 21st and 22nd. We're going to try and fully drape the room. So we had a meeting there last week and the sun was a bit of an issue. So just to be aware that it was an issue, and we're going to try and get that addressed for our upcoming meeting on February 21st with the breakfast and then the conference with Rick Knowles coming in to talk about seed and seed health. So book online for that. So to kick it off, just the expectations for today. Like Minister Webster said, we don't have the silver bullet. So we're going to go through lots of information here today. I met with Christine and Bob last night, and we went through some of the issues and some of the information that's going to be distributed here. So we do have lots of information. So I encourage everybody to think about some of it. And if you have any questions, we got some mics set up here. So feel free to ask some questions and fully understand the impact of this wireworm. We are not alone. I guess doing some of the research, wireworm populations seem to be on an increase with damage globally. There's a number of studies being done that confirm that wireworm is increasing in various agricultural sectors around the world. And some reasons, I guess, why wireworms seem to be getting worse. The wireworms they do spend a lot of time, the worms themselves, the larvae, in the ground. It's very difficult to control insects that are in the ground for the majority of their life cycle. There's many host crops that wireworm can live on, so that makes it challenging. As well, many of the old broad spectrum pesticides are no longer used. Lindane was a product, an organochlorine that was used for many years and was able to give control of some of these insects, and some of its effects are beginning to wear off. It was a very persistent pesticide and was in the ground and would continue to kill and control some of the neonates in wireworms. So that those products are beginning to wear off in many areas of the world, which is part of the reason why we seem to be seeing an increase in damage. Many of our newer pesticides have more targeted modes of action, so they're softer, as they say, but yet they're not the broad spectrum residual pesticides that we've had in the past that seem to control. As well, we're using more in-furrow/seed treatments, so we're getting less over-the-top sprays of some of the crops, especially potatoes. So that's we're seeing less collateral damage from possibly killing some of the click beetles. As well, all the individuals do not come to service at the same time, so it's a challenge to control them because they seem to be able to avoid certain seasons. So just to go through some of the areas, what damage is like. The first one that we hear a lot about is Europe. There's been reports of some significant damage in Europe, in Germany, Netherlands, Italy, and so on. They're similar to us with their species, where they do have some Agriotis species, and Bob's and Christine will get into some more information on the different species and the impact that they do have. But Agriotis is one of the species that seems to like eating potatoes. Over in Europe, it seems that they have the most common one is Agricultus lineatus, which we do have here, and obscurus, and then spitator, which seems to be one of our major issues here on Prince Edward Island. Just so to continue along to other areas outside of Europe, Australia and New Zealand as well has been reporting damage from wireworms. In those areas, they have something as well they call false wireworms, and it's a different type of beetle, and those larvae come from what they call darkling beetles, but as well from some of their district offices over there, they've been reporting increased damage to a variety of crops, grain crops and different types of crops, as well as their vegetable crops. So that's just there's lots of other areas. I just picked a couple there to show some of the issues. The United States seems to be as well has some pockets of damage. We were in Maine there last week, and it was the first presentation on at their potato conference was on wireworm. So it does seem to be an emergent issue as well in Maine, although it still seems to be restricted mostly to fields they find coming out of long-term pasture or forages. But it is starting to become an issue on their radar. So obviously it is showing up. There's just different species around. As we know, U.S. is a huge land base, so there is different species around the different areas, such as the corn wireworm in Virginia and the tobacco wireworm. In North Carolina, it's the tobacco wireworm was the most prevalent species. As well in Idaho, there's some wireworm there, sugar beet wireworm. And as well in western or in eastern Washington, it seems to be a large problem in some of their wheat crops is where they're mostly reporting it. As we all know with the U.S., they do have some different chemistries available that they use as well, so they do have some more tools in their toolbox. But it is showing up even in the U.S. in certain pockets, in certain areas, and impacting certain crops. And depending, the severity depends on the crops and their cropping history. So it definitely is showing up as well in the U.S. And they do have some control options available. Canada, this map is courtesy of Dr. Vernon, and this kind of shows Canada and some of the areas where wireworm are having some impacts. You can see in the Atlantic region, southern Quebec and southern Ontario. And then in the western provinces, you can see significant issues in obviously Manitoba and Alberta, as well as pockets in British Columbia. So, he has 5 main zones with damage through south part of the Quebec and in through Atlantic Canada. Dr. Vernon and his team have done a number of research projects as well with and surveys looking at the populations like we have done here with Dr. Nerona. This was his 2010 sites, so as you can see, right spread through the production areas of Western Canada. And just a summary of the species, we often talk about the differences across Canada of the different species. Just going west to east, you can see that they do have in BC, and Dr. Vernon will elaborate more on this, on obscurus and lineatus, as well as some other species. Different species through the prairies and Ontario. And then when you get into the eastern part with Quebec there and Atlantic Canada, you see more of the Agricultus or the European wireworm. So, when we talk about some of the different species and the issues, it's good to know how they roll out across the province with the different species of wireworm. And you can see in the blue from some of the newer species that are being found. So in Canada. So in Prince Edward Island, any of you that have been involved with some of our surveys in 2009 and 2012 with Dr. Nerona, we've mostly finding Agricultus spitator, which is one that seems to like root crops like potatoes and carrots. So it's going to be difficult because it does like to eat some of our root crops. So it's a challenge. As well as there's some native species here as well, and we talked last night about some of the normally in any given field when we trap click beetles, we're finding minimum 3 to 4 species. So it's not just one we're dealing with. So sometimes your strategies have to be a little different for the different types of wireworm. Put together with the Potato Board and the Agri Alliance just some numbers just to put it in context. This is just this is just some rough estimates, so I wouldn't take it to the bank. The cost we estimated on the number of acres that use thiamide, it's 15,000 plus acres of thiamide goes down in potatoes. Carrots do not have any products available, so that's roughly 1.3 million. Crop insurance, 3.2 million. Losses through potato processing from the potato sector estimates to be 1.6 million. Losses through carrots from Joanne and her numbers averaged last year to be roughly 820,000, and rutabagas and turnips, cabbage, depending on the year and the situation, the pressure can be a bit of a spread there, but significant losses depending on the year and the pressure. Grains and oilseeds, we saw some losses in certain fields. And we knew they occurred because we went in the field and dug up some of the fields and found significant wireworm pressure where there was some patchiness in the field. So we estimate the cost to be roughly over 7 million, and that's just rough figuring with the numbers that we have from some of the industry feedback. So that's significant number, and we're just kind of starting to get a handle on just how huge of an impact it is having, and the potential impact that it can have if it continues to develop and expand. So it's a very, very serious issue, and everybody here is well aware of that. That's all I'm going to say for now to kick it off with the kind of the scan of Canada and other parts of the world. And a little bit on the economics. So right now we're going to roll into the next presentation. Try to keep us on time.